Oh, hello. College. Whether you didn't go, are going to go, currently in college, or currently out of college now making videos on YouTube, I think we can all agree what college is. It's a place where you go to study something that possibly gets you a job in the future. College is also where you make new friends, learn how to budget your money and time, find out how much food and drink you can consume without regretting it. And chances are, if you were a student hundreds of years ago, you would be exploring these same things. See, college, or the university, or the studium generale, formerly developed during the high medieval ages. There were other centers of learning too elsewhere and earlier in places such as Baghdad and Timbuktu, but in this video we'll be exploring university life in Europe during the high medieval ages as well as the late Middle Ages. Needless to say, your medieval college experience would vary considering the amount of time and the different universities we'll be covering. So with that, I'd like to present to you your time being a college student in medieval Europe. Congratulations! You have just completed your early education, which was provided by your church or a monastery, or maybe you were homeschooled or tutored. But now you need higher education to attain a good job. There are various universities across places like Italy, France, and England. And bonus congratulations, you are a European male. See, due to the patriarchal nature of European society, you as a male can attend these universities to get a job with the church, who is only accepting male applicants. And as a student, you will be recognized as a cleric, either a regular one, who takes religious vows, or a secular one, who does not take religious vows. Also, courts of church and secular authorities were hiring, so kings, princes, and bishops needed notaries, jurists, physicians, and more. And the universities accepted applicants starting from just 14 years old. So where would you go to university? Universities were located all across Europe, and like today, you could go to a university in a country you have never been to before. Now this could be scary, but fear not, because there could be other students from your country at the university. If this was the case, it would make sense that you would all stick together and form a clique. These were known as the guilds or nations at a university. So let's look at just a few of the main places you guys could have gone to. If you wanted to go to college in Italy, there was the University of Bologna, and if you wanted to go here, chances are you also wanted to study law. And students had a lot of power here, as it was the student body that actually had hired and paid its teachers. In fact, students could get the teacher fired if they did not show up on time or if they cut lessons short. If you wanted to go to Paris for your education, chances are you wanted to study theology, as theology was its main study. Lecturers here were hired and paid by the church, and students were less likely to run the show as more of them were younger. Then you had the various colleges in England, such as Oxford and Cambridge. The lecturers here were hired and paid out of funds supplied by the state. And you could have chosen to go to one of these universities for various reasons, such as who taught at the university and what you wanted to study. And alongside law and theology was medicine. These were a part of the foundational high faculty at the medieval university. It was these three main subjects that the medieval universities revolved around. Law became a greater interest after the discovery of Byzantine Emperor Justinian's Corpus Juris Civilis. Using this text, students would study Roman law. And for theology, students would study canon law, or laws of the church, which included reading the Decretum, which were excerpts from the Bible and the Church Fathers, and the Decretols that updated canon law. Theology also revolved around the works of Aristotle, which were translated by Ibn Sina and Ibn Rushd. For medicine, texts relied on the writings of Galen. Now that we know the basics, let's dive into your academic life at the medieval university. Wake up, it's 5 a.m. and it's time for school. And you better start speaking some Latin, because no matter where you went, Latin was the language spoken at the university. The students and the teachers had to speak and recognize Latin, especially during the lectures and disputations. Lectures consisted of the teacher reading from an authoritative text, like Aristotle or Galen, and then commentating on it. You would take an ordinary lecture, which was given by the teacher, who covered main text, and you would take an extraordinary lecture, which covered less main text, and were given by both students with bachelor's degrees and also the teacher. Lectures are no more than 3 times a week, and if you're a good student, you would attend these lectures in the morning and early afternoon, then study the lecture privately afterwards. Students with bachelor's degrees participated in disputations, where you debated another student on a given topic. It was a showdown where you had to use your logic and the knowledge of the given text, and then the professor would choose which student would win. The disputation relates to a method of learning employed in many medieval universities called scholasticism, which utilized Christian faith, reason, and tradition in its studies. Another method of learning called humanism would also be employed at the university. Humanism rather emphasized more on studying and recovering ancient Greek and Roman traditions. In fact, this would lead to the cultural phenomenon of the Renaissance. And another thing, your classes were not in some illustrious building, but were usually in a church or in some private building or a house, like your teacher's house. The universities offered classes that revolved around the 7 liberal arts. The liberal arts are taken from the Greek and are studies broken up in what are known as the trivium and the quadrivium. Now these are the low faculty as opposed to the high faculty of law, theology, and medicine. Completion of the trivium is the first step. These courses consist of grammar, logic, and rhetoric. And these courses, as well as the courses in the quadrivium, focused on books, like books in the Bible or a book by Aristotle. Your grammar textbook was likely Ilias Donatus's Ars Grammatica, which had overviews of speech. For logic, you would be reading an introduction to Aristotle, called the Isagogy, by Porphyry, and translated in Latin by Boethius. And when studying rhetoric, you would probably be reading Cicero. The quadrivium, which was taught after you completed everything in the trivium, consisted of arithmetic, astronomy, music, and geometry. The astronomy textbook could be De Spherae Mundi, On the Sphere of the World by John of Hollywood, which was about stars and planets, and yes, that the Earth was a sphere. Geometry, you could be reading Euclid. For music, you would read Boethius, and for arithmetic, you would be using the new Hindu-Arabic number system. And you had to memorize, well, just about all of this. We do, however, have evidence that medieval students did take notes on wax tablets, but I would say you needed a pretty good memory if you wanted to succeed in the oral examinations of the university. In the university, you would also likely talk about and be immersed in the politics of the day. You would have discussions and arguments about political classes, the Pope, money, contracts, religious reform, and more. Kind of like the "is a hamburger really a sandwich" arguments that we have today. After completing both the quadrivium and trivium, you would get your master's degree. This would take about 6 years, while only getting a bachelor's degree would take 4 years. But if you wanted a degree in law, theology, or medicine, you needed to do another 4 years to get your bachelor's in the field of your choosing. This could take you to your 12th year in college or even more. So like today, whenever you were done with a certain degree, you would decide if you would go into the workforce or if you wanted more schooling. I know this is a lot of lectures, studying, and work, but rest assured you do have breaks and vacations at medieval university. These revolved around various feasts of the church, and you would take breaks during Christmas and Easter. And shocker, prepare to spend a lot of money. You got expenses for room and board, food, clothes, ink and quill, and any extracurricular activities. But luckily, you may already be rich or are receiving financial assistance from aristocrats and/or churches. You could also have a part-time job, maybe as a scribe or as a tutor. So with that, let's talk more about campus life. The university rules were generally strict. The university relies on you being a nice, wholesome fellow who is not going to cause a ruckus and nuisance at the school. There are a bunch of random, interesting medieval university rules that spans the generations. At King's College, there are no bears, monkeys, wolves, or stags allowed. Students at Oxford and Cambridge had to wear the tonsure and wear clerical dress. At Paris, you would have to be quiet during meals because you would have to listen to the Bible being read while you ate. At the College des Verdales at Toulouse, expulsion was the penalty for a list of crimes which includes theft, entering the college by stealth, breaking into the cellar, bringing in a mirror tricks? I don't even know. Witchcraft, alchemy, and invoking demons or sacrificing to them. At Oxford, a punishment could be to chug alcohol. No, really, it's called sconcing, and it would be done if you committed a minor offense. That was the punishment. It was to chug alcohol. Other regulations included no arms, no disturbing chapel services, regulations on bringing strangers and sleeping out of college, no offensive language, and no women. And you could be punished by being expelled, fined, or even flogged. Remember that, like today, university life consisted of you without your parental figures. So you know what that means?
It's party time.
This is particularly exciting for you as a young chap. As a medieval student, you would notice that many students are drinking, gambling, and being promiscuous. They're not getting the recommended 8 hours of sleep college students should be getting. As a student, you were also expected to be in conflict with the townsfolk who were also located in the same town. Remember, there is no campus. The university and all that comes with it is just situated in the city or town. The people in the town do not go to your university, and you may not speak the same language as them. You probably have a different culture, and you certainly have a different lifestyle. You may not like the town because of the rent they charge and the people that you see, and they may not like you because of you and your chums' activity around the town and the fact that you all practically invaded their way of life. One of the most infamous events of town versus gown occurred in 1355 and is known as the St. Scholastica Day Riot. This riot was started after a fight at a tavern, which is how most fights started, and the story goes that the students didn't like the wine. They threw said wine at the bartender, which started a fight where the church bells were rung to call in reinforcements, and over 90 people were killed in the ensuing brawls and fights inside and outside the tavern. Needless to say, there were many violent interactions between the town and the gown. In fact, the University of Cambridge was originally formed after a fight between the townspeople and the students of the University of Oxford. Knowing this, you're either cautious going out to taverns or ready to fight at a minute's notice. And certainly there may also be tensions within the university based on ethnic differences of students. And yes, the university revolved heavily around the church, but that did not mean everybody was on board with the church. For example, there was a group called Goliards, who were young clergymen who would write satirical poems that protested and mocked the church. And soon the church and the universities would have to compete or adapt to new political, religious, and cultural events that would rock Europe. Well, what do you think? How do you think you would have done in medieval university? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to see more videos like this and be notified when the next video is, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll see you next time.